74 people wrote their own healing journeys in their own words, what they had, how they'd healed, so that the readers can see that we can heal ourselves. And from things that doctors tell us we can't, like we can forgive and let go, what actually happens is the memories of that trauma fade into the background. And it impacts us a lot less because we've rationalized it, we've understood it. Okay, so one really striking story that really exemplifies healing is a man who healed multiple sclerosis. Message. So if we're suppressing those messages, our body will find another way to express that same message, and the severity will increase over time if we're just taking pills to stop those symptoms.
In the coming episode, I speak with Sarah Dawkins. Sarah is a distinguished holistic health and healing coach, well-known keynote speaker, and the celebrated author of Heal Yourself. With a background as a registered nurse spanning 2 decades, Sarah brings a unique blend of clinical expertise and holistic wisdom to her multi-award-winning entrepreneurial endeavors. Her philosophy centers on the transformative power of real nutritious foods, consistent physical activity, effective stress management, and emotional healing. Sarah believes that true health arises from a harmonious balance of what we eat, think, and do. She's passionate about guiding others to build sustainable, healthy habits, empowering them to unlock their body's innate ability to prevent, treat, and heal disease, one day at a time. Enjoy the conversation. Maybe just one thing. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a like at the end or a comment and follow our channel. This way we can reach more audience, invite more interesting guests that talk about more interesting topics. Thank you very much and enjoy the episode. Welcome at the Wake Inside, Sarah.
Thank you, Henk. It's lovely to be here with you.
Amazing. I'm really glad that you're here as well. The moment that I discovered you and I saw that book that you wrote actually is really on the topic of many guests that we have here in the podcast. So yeah, I'm very curious about your story. And first of all, I would like to know actually what was for you the motivation to write the book for people to heal themselves?
Well, it started from my own healing because before I healed myself, I was raised in the medical model. My mum was a nurse. So I believe when we're sick, we go to the doctors and get a pill and that heals us. It wasn't until somebody questioned me using pharmaceuticals at home that I started to do this research in how we can heal and what we need to be doing to heal ourselves outside of pharmaceuticals. So it was a whole new world for me. And I started healing my body because I'd suffered with psoriasis and eczema as well as acid reflux for many, many, many years. So that's where I started. And then I went on and healed candida, chronic joint pains, underactive thyroid, burnt out adrenal glands, and finally depression with suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
And during all of that healing, I had no plans to write a book. It was during that depression that one of my friends said to me, "You will write a book." And I'm like, how will I write a book about what? I'm not an author. I'm a nurse. And as I started healing that depression with the suicidal thoughts, my mind became clearer. And I look back at everything else I'd healed. I'm like, so I see myself writing a book now about my own healing, what I've done and how I've healed, because it was, as I say, it was a whole new world outside of pharmaceuticals. And I was learning about what my body was capable of, how I could support it to heal more efficiently. And that's how my book started. I started writing about my own experiences. And once I'd got there, it was only about 10,000 words. And my brain's going, well, it's just about you. How's that going to help many people? It's only going to help people that are suffering with what you've had. So I put it away for 5 years on my laptop. It just went to sleep because I didn't know what to do with it. And I woke up one day and I said, and something inside me said, Sarah, you've got to write this book. You've got to get other people involved with other illnesses and other diseases and other symptoms and have them to write their own healing journeys. So that's when I reached out on social media and asked for people. And stories kept coming in the author's own words, the healer's own words. And I was looking outside of what I'd got and what I hadn't got. And I went looking for people on the internet who maybe hadn't seen my posts on social media and asking them, can I see you've got a website? I see you've healed. Would you like to share your healing through my book? And my aim is to help people to see that we can heal ourselves, because it was a revelation to me. And so that's how they came on board. And 74 people wrote their own healing journeys in their own words, what they had, how they'd healed, so that the readers can see that we can heal ourselves. And from things that doctors tell us we can't, like autoimmune, like cancer, like multiple sclerosis, like ALS or motor neurone, as we call it in the UK. All of these diseases have been healed by the healers in my book, naturally, without pharmaceuticals.
Wow, that's amazing. At the same time, these are big statements as well, actually, because it's a very sensitive topic to,
Yeah.
to claim actually that you can heal certain diseases in a totally different way. And then saying that we can actually heal it yourself and we don't need this whole pharmaceutical industry to heal ourselves. That's huge, right? So I'm actually wondering, how did you discover all of that? Because you're also, I guess, raised in an environment where people go to the doctor, and if you're sick, then your parents tell you to go to the doctor or someone else that takes care of you. So how do you actually step out of that and decide for yourself, no, this is not for me, I'm going to do something different?
It was challenging, I won't lie, because my core belief was that when I'm sick, I need a doctor and a medicine. That was a core belief. And it was only by doing research and reading about other people who'd healed and about what our body's capable of when we treat it right, that I started to become conscious of my belief that I thought I needed a pharmaceutical and a doctor, and started changing it, because now I'm seeing evidence and research of other people healing themselves, doing all sorts of different things. So challenging a core belief is really challenging in itself, because your ego throws up all these rationales on why your core belief is correct as it is at the minute, to try and prevent you from changing it. So once I saw my own biases, my cognitive biases, I was able to change them by seeking out more information from more people who had healed themselves. And once I started taking more and more of that information on board, I was researching for months and months and months and months, literally every day, about what we're capable of. Once I started seeing what other people were doing, I kind of put it all together. And because I was raised in the medical model and worked in the medical model, my only thought around healing was it's physical. So I need to look at what I'm eating. Am I getting enough exercise? Am I sleeping well? Am I hydrating well? Am I taking enough oxygen in, doing some deep breathing? And that's the only, as I call it now, pillar. I've devised 4 pillars of healing, but I was only just looking at this physical pillar, because my cognitive biases were, that's all they would allow me at the time. So I started changing my food and cut out convenience food, fast food, fake food, gluten and cereals, as well as lactose and dairy. And that, in just doing that initially, healed the psoriasis, eczema and acid reflux within about a month, maybe.
So
That's all gone and healed.
so that's one of the 4 pillars that you're just mentioning, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you maybe mention the other 3 pillars, and then also maybe break it down to what it entails? Since the launch of this podcast, I haven't really introduced the True Impact Club yet. Are you looking to expand your network with other well-being entrepreneurs? Or you want to gain valuable insights into industry trends, business strategies, or sales and marketing? Or maybe you're looking for potential collaborations to grow together with like-minded entrepreneurs. If so, the True Impact Club might be perfect for you. It's a community where we meet bi-weekly to share our stories and journeys. Are you interested in joining? Just visit trueimpactclub.com to find all resources you need to become a member of the community. Thank you, and let's continue the conversation.
Absolutely. And the other three pillars took me a while to understand, because obviously I was a nurse and just looking at the physical.
Yeah.
So the second pillar, I would say, is the mental. So we need to look out for our mental health. And I realized this when I was suffering from the depression, because I had brain fog, the underactive thyroid fed into that as well. I wasn't able to do much research because it was like wading through a treacle. I was really struggling to concentrate and take the information on board. And it also was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So what do I look for when I don't know? But I realized looking back that the mental health part of it is about practicing gratitude and mindfulness, which I actually, when I look back, that's what I'd started doing as I started healing the depression. And I didn't even know I was doing it. It was like I was intuitively doing it. And as I got a little bit better, I was able to start doing some meditation. Because all of these are calming down our mind, bringing it to more of a place of peace rather than chaos. And the meditation at first, when I first tried it, I had no idea, never meditated before. So I sat on the sofa, closed my eyes, and just sat there. And of course, this voice came nattering in my ear. Who are you? What do you think you're doing? You're no good. And just lots and lots of negative mind chatter.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, clearly I'm not meant to meditate, because I didn't have any other idea what it entailed.
Yeah.
So I started researching on the internet, how do you meditate? And I found guided meditations. And they were easier because I was listening to somebody's voice. I was following their instructions. I was making the scenes in my mind, which shut that negative mind chatter voice down.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. And initially just like 5 minutes at a time, and then extending to 10 minutes. And just finding sort of inner peace. That's all I wanted at the time, was to find inner peace and to be calmer. And the longer I did it, the more I realized that I was finding that peace inside myself. And I could then go off and start looking at my future. What did I want?
Yeah.
But that was a progression. So the meditation, the mindfulness, and the gratitude come under the mental health. But also things to challenge your minds, like learning a new language, or doing crossword puzzles, or something that needs your focus and concentration, that stimulate your mind. So part of it's to calm down your mind. The other part is to stimulate it in a good way, a creative way. The third pillar is spiritual health. And that isn't about religion or spirituality. It can be if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. It's about, we've all got an inner voice inside of us. Some people call it inner wisdom, higher self. Other people call it God, the spirit, the angels, the universe. The name is not important. But what is important is we connect back into that voice within us. And we can do that through mindfulness and meditation. Even sort of dog walking out in the country, in green space, walking by a river, we can tap back into ourselves because we're in that quiet space. But also about making connections with other people who are at the same level as you, or at a higher level as you, to help pull you up, but have got common interests. So you've got that resonance with them.
Does
And the
that
fourth and
does
sorry,
that does that include relationships then? If I'm understanding well?
you can do, yes. It's about that connection.
Yeah.
So relationships, but good relationships, finding those people who are at your level, and on a positive note, rather than relationships with people on a negative note, not like trauma bonding, although that has got an emotional element to it. The fourth pillar is something I didn't even ever think about, and that's emotional health. And that is, for a lot of people, they don't know that they need to go inside and deal with that emotional trauma from their childhood. It's about understanding what happened in our past, but seeing it through the eyes of ourselves now as an adult, because we hold that trauma within us through the eyes of the child that we were when we went through it, whatever it was. And when I say trauma, it doesn't have to be like a sexual abuse or a physical abuse. It could be trauma with what we say little t, as in being teased or being pushed back to let somebody cut in front of you in the line. It's about what we perceive that situation to be and how we hold it, because somebody who was sexually abused could hold their trauma as equal as somebody who was maybe teased by a sibling, by a family friend. They could both hold that trauma to the same concentration, if you like, within them.
Yeah.
So it's about how we hold it, not what happened, how we hold it, because our perception as a child is very different from our perception now as an adult. So when we understand what we're holding on to, looking at it through the eyes of forgiveness and unconditional love, we can look back and look at the bigger picture. What was happening in that person's life? What was it that made them say or do whatever it was that they did to us?
Yeah.
There's so many things we don't know about. And if we can bring ourselves to a place of, well, something must have happened to them to make them do that to us, or maybe even they never gave it a second thought. But if we can bring ourselves to a place of allowing ourselves to forgive either the person or their soul, but also to be able to let it go.
Yeah.
And in letting it go, we're not forgetting. We're not saying that's it, forgive and forget. It's not about forgetting. The forgiveness is for us. It's not for the other person. It's helping us to offload that load, to be able to let go of carrying that burden of holding on to that trauma throughout the rest of our lives. So if we can forgive and let go, what actually happens is the memories of that trauma fade into the background, and it impacts us a lot less because we've rationalized it, we've understood it,
Yeah.
and we've offloaded it. So the four pillars: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And I do believe we need to cover all of those four pillars for our true healing.
Yeah.
And that helps us to heal from the root cause as well, because taking a pill, we're just ameliorating symptoms or stopping symptoms. Whereas when we go into why did we get sick, what's the message, what's underpinning, if we can address all those four pillars,
Yeah.
we can heal ourselves from the root cause.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Super important. So, are these four pillars actually equally important, or if you could give them a gradation, what would be the more important ones of the four?
I think the emotional healing is paramount, because forgiveness is really key in helping us to let go of the past. We can change our diet and we can get in touch with that inner voice, and we can do the mindfulness and gratitude. But if we can't do that emotional healing work to be able to let go, we will just hold on to that and it will weigh us down throughout our life. So I would say that is the most key element.
Yeah.
In most cases, I mean, some cases we get sick because we have a reaction to an environmental toxin or something we're eating. But in the main, I do believe the emotional is key.
Yeah. I was expecting you were going to say that actually, because you were explaining it much longer than all the other pillars.
Yeah.
And also because of my own experience, I fully agree with that. Actually, I think that fourth pillar is super important. But I'm also curious because I myself I didn't experience the really like a disease or a severe disease or anything like that. I'm just wondering. So these four pillars, are they more as a prevention, or do you see them also as a way to work on healing yourself? And how is that different?
Both. Both. Because if we address all those four pillars when we're well, it absolutely works as prevention. But if we're healing a trauma from the past, it will have an effect on us, a positive effect on us, whether we think we're sick or not. Something will give, will surrender, will be released to help us to move forward. So we can use it proactively by covering all those four pillars in our lives, and we can use it reactively towards healing our symptoms or disease.
Now, most people don't do it, I guess, as a prevention because, if nothing really like severe happens in your life, why would you actually spending time on this and doing the efforts, right? So,
Yes.
and then I'm also wondering, so when there is something that happens in your life and you want to explore that domain, isn't that like a longer journey than and a more complicated journey maybe than just taking pills, go to the doctor and something like that? So I can imagine that plays a little bit with people's mind.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to just pop a pill and
Easier, yeah,
change nothing.
yeah,
Much easier.
yeah,
It doesn't take any effort other than collecting your pills and taking your pills daily.
and if it
Whereas
helps,
doing all of, yes, yeah, if it takes the symptoms away,
symptoms, yeah.
but it, and that's to understand that we don't heal, we just stop the symptoms with the pharmaceuticals.
Exactly, and that's what people don't understand actually. So at that moment, they're maybe they think they're healed actually, but the symptoms are just gone, and then maybe the year after or 5 years after, something comes back. They don't know what it is. They don't link it with each other probably because they forget already what happened before, and then they're again tackling the symptoms, right? Right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I do believe if we stop our symptoms with pharmaceuticals, we suppress basically. We suppress whatever it is that's coming up to be seen. Our symptoms are messengers. So if we're suppressing those messages, our body will find another way to express that same message. And the severity will increase over time if we're just taking pills to stop those symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. In your book, you have many case stories of people that overcame certain diseases or challenging times in their lives. Can you give like an example of one of the people that are in your book, or maybe another example of like a specific disease that someone had that people can relate with, say, one of the listeners, and the way how they over is that overcame, is that a word, overcame it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And how they overcame it, and a little bit about the process. Hey, just a quick note from our sponsor, True Impact Agency. If you want to set up marketing funnels, create landing pages, or start advertising campaigns, they have years of experience offering these kind of marketing services. You can just get in touch with them through the website, through impactagency.com, and there's also a free ebook for you to download, where you can learn how to turn quality leads into paying customers. Thank you very much, and let's continue the episode.
Okay, so one really striking story that really exemplifies healing is a man who healed multiple sclerosis. And he was wheelchair bound, quite a thin man, reliant on family for help. And his brother took him to the doctors one day for a checkup, new medications or different medications. And they both watched the doctor go on the internet, go on Google, and search for what can I give for multiple sclerosis, what tablets work with it, what help can I offer them. And they both had this light bulb moment that, wow, if the doctor can do that, they could do that too.
Yeah, of course.
So they went home and they started doing lots of research. And at the same time, somebody gave that guy a book called The Secret, about positive mindset and about law of attraction.
That's an old
So he
one.
started, isn't it just?
Yeah.
So he started doing some of the work, changing his diet and looking at the way his thought processes were, and started going to the gym and totally healed the multiple sclerosis. MRIs or CTs showed absolutely no lesions in his brain, so proof that he'd healed the multiple sclerosis. And he became a bodybuilder, and he's now a big guy training in the gym. He's got his own business, balloting cars, and he's just testament to the fact that we can have a light bulb moment. We can see that doctors, yes, they're led with pharmaceuticals, but they also go to the internet to look things up as we can. And if the doctor can do that, why couldn't he? So I think that's a beautiful story of healing, about changing his mindset and doing some research and changing his lifestyle.
Yeah, but what came up with me actually, if you share that, if the doctor goes to Google to find a solution, then I would be terrified. Like, wow, if the doctor has to go to Google to find a solution, it means that he doesn't know any solution from his own experience. So that would be a alarm bell for me.
Yeah, but then doctors training is funded by pharmaceutical companies. So they're trained to look at symptoms, group them together, and then find a pharmaceutical for those symptoms or that diagnosis. So it's about bringing symptoms and medicines together in their training, which is what he'd done, and put the guy on a lot of medications for MS. But obviously
Okay.
they weren't really doing much good because he was in a wheelchair.
Okay, so but out of Google, what came out of Google? It was the medicines or it was like an alternative solution?
I don't know what they did in the doctor's office at that visit, but
Yeah,
he definitely went home and started
I started
researching and
researching.
changed
Yeah,
his diet.
yeah.
Yeah, he started eating better and reading that book and thinking better thoughts, being more clear about what his goal was, what he wanted for his future.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Impressive story, definitely.
Yeah,
But yeah, there are more of this kind of stories, right? They're in your book,
yeah,
like
yeah.
explained in very detail. So, can you also tell a little bit more about your own story, um, the healing story that you went through, and everything that you actually discovered, and you also teach now your own clients, how that evolved over time? Because yeah, it's all about information, I think. So you
Yeah.
learn from different mentors, some other leaders in the field. Was that in the process where you were healing yourself and at the same time serving other people, or was the parallel not so long? Yeah, if you know what I mean.
So yeah, so I started with the physical and healed the acid reflux, eczema, and psoriasis within about the month. So I started my healing journey then. It was later on, a few years later, when I started suffering with chronic pain and candida. And again, I went back to the internet and did lots of research. And for the chronic pain, I went to a chiropractor who manipulated me and used acupuncture. So I didn't do anything other than the clean eating that I'd been doing anyway, and the use of the chiropractor. Rather than take painkillers from the doctor, I
Yeah,
used chiropractic movement,
movements. Yeah.
manipulation, and acupuncture. And that healed. I had two frozen shoulders, one year, one the next. And I also had a lower back pain problem. So the chiropractor helped me to heal that through what they did.
Mm-hmm.
The candida, I was still eating sugar and gluten free bread. So still eating lots of carbohydrates. And I cut out all the carbohydrates, as in not vegetables and fruit and plants, but rather than the carbohydrates, as in bread, potatoes, cakes, pastries. So I already wasn't eating the gluten at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me to heal the candida. And then I went on in 2010 to spiral into the deep, dark depression, which at the same time my thyroid became underactive and I burnt out my adrenal glands, which was evidenced by my blood pressure dropping from textbook 120/70 to 80/40. And it stayed there for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, because I was so depressed, I didn't really know what I was doing. As I said, I felt intuitively when I was out walking the dogs one day, I've just felt that I needed to look outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was spring and all the buds were in leaf and there was flowers coming. And it was like, oh, how beautiful is that to see?
Yeah.
And there was grey sky. It was the UK, so there was lots of grey sky. Look, there's a tiny bit of blue sky. How beautiful is that to see? So I started practicing this mindfulness and gratitude. But at that time, I was still a nurse and I hadn't learnt about the emotional healing. I was
Mm-hmm.
just learning more about the spiritual connecting back inside of me. I started listening to that voice. It was barely audible at first because I'd shut it down years ago.
Yeah.
And other than negative self chatter, that my inner voice had just disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was healing that depression, I was more able to start thinking logically and rationally and do some more research. I found out that my thyroid was linked to the throat chakra, which is about speaking your truth. And I'd swallowed a lot of my words. I'd not said a lot of things that I wanted to say. I'd kept them within me. So I started speaking out and becoming more authentic. I also realized that for the thyroid, we could do a body detox. So I started eating even cleaner than I was already. And looked at the products that I was using, the cleaning products and the shampoos, conditioners, soaps, the laundry products, and everything that I was using was toxic. It was just like supermarket, regular stuff off the supermarket, but it was all full of toxins.
Yeah.
That when we take those in, whether we're absorbing it through our skin, whether we're eating it, our body's got to detoxify
Yeah.
all of that before it can start to heal. So I started making my own washing powder and softener, my own
Wow.
beauty products. I changed my toothpaste and literally started detoxifying my whole environment and using clean products from health and wellness stores rather than supermarkets.
Yeah.
So that combined with healthy eating, cutting out the gluten and lactose, and speaking more candidly, being more authentic, helped me to heal not just the depression, but the underactive thyroid.
Yeah.
My adrenals took quite a few years to heal because it had taken quite a few years to burn them out. And I just craved salt, everything. I needed salt. So I used to take lots and lots of salt and realized that for adrenal healing, we have to eat regularly, frequently, small, a little and often. Whereas I'd been doing intermittent fasting. So which is great for health, but it's not great for adrenal health. So I had to change the way I was eating. So rather than eating 2 meals a day, I started eating 4 or 5 smaller meals to feed and nourish my adrenal glands.
What is adrenal gland? Can you maybe explain it for people that don't understand what it is?
So your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys and they release the cortisol.
Okay.
And when you're in such a high stress state, you're releasing so much cortisol that your adrenal glands cannot keep up. And when your adrenal glands start getting a bit burnt out, you can drop your blood pressure, which is what I did. So we need to nourish the adrenal glands with salt, helps us do that, and regular eating, small meals, little and often.
Okay, so what you're saying actually, if someone is stressed, and a lot of people are stressed from their work and all kind of things, then they have to eat regularly small portions a day.
That will certainly help adrenal health. But the key is understanding the stress and
Yes.
de-stressing, because we're stressed because things happen outside of us that we want to control.
Yeah.
And we can't control situations, we can't control people. And we stress because we want to control them.
Yeah.
And yet we can only control ourselves. We have no control over anything else. And everything else is not our responsibility.
Yeah.
We are our responsibility. So when we can use that and change our mindset and stop trying to control everything outside of ourselves, that in itself helps us to de-stress.
It's a beautiful bridge to mindset. Because I'm actually wondering, when you're explaining the whole story, you're learning from books, you experienced different issues in your life, health issues. Yeah, what kind of mindset do you need to have actually, or what would you recommend people actually to do when they go into this process? Because I can imagine that it doesn't happen overnight. You try a certain solution or certain advice that you read, and something happens, maybe something doesn't happen. Am I doing the right thing? Should I continue?
Yeah.
Should I go to the doctor? These kind of things. Can you explain a little bit how that worked for you?
Sure. So first of all, my core beliefs were that I needed a pill, and that needed me to change my mindset to be able to change my core beliefs. So to look at the world differently through different eyes. And our mindset, when I was depressed, for the first maybe year of that depression, I was a victim. I felt a victim. I felt bullied and harassed, and I felt like, woe is me, poor me. I'm the victim here. Look at me. And that fed into my depression. Not my depression, the depression I had. We don't want to own any disease. But I do believe part of healing is about feeling into that victim mindset, because it's easy to go, look at all this happening to me. You know, I'm a victim here because of all this that I can't control that's happening to me. And we can change our mindset and look at it differently. What skills am I gaining through what I'm going through?
Yeah.
And rather than looking at it as happening to me, it's happening for me. And it's about understanding the whole picture.
Yeah.
Yes, feel it to heal it, but then step out of that, look at me, I'm a victim, to what is the lesson here?
Yeah.
What is the blessing, maybe? How can I change the way I reframe this? So I started looking at what I gained, the skills I'd gained. It showed me the people I thought were my friends weren't my friends. It showed me that I am capable and competent to do things by myself without having to rely on other people. So changing that mindset of I can't do anything about it to yes, I can do all of this. And as it happened, looking back on it now, I had to go through that, because I do believe that when we're not aligned with who we're here on this planet to be in this body,
Yeah.
our life will get difficult, as a nudge from the universe, if you like,
Yeah.
that we're not on the right path. We need to change our path, change our course, set our sails differently. And because of what I went through, I changed my life path from caring for people in a hospital with pharmaceuticals as a nurse to understanding what it takes to heal ourselves and wanting to help people, to empower people to heal themselves rather than be reliant on hospitals and doctors and pills, to look at what they can do for themselves on their own healing journey. So if I hadn't have gone through that, I believe I would still be a nurse. And that was a job I wanted to do forever. You know, I saw myself as a retired registered nurse. So there was a whole mindset there as well that needed to be dealt with
Yeah.
around authenticity, because who am I if I'm not a nurse? And I had to dig into who am I
Yeah.
outside of a nurse.
Yeah.
And then when I found out who I was, then I was able to train and become a coach to help other people, to empower them, for
Yeah.
them to help them step outside that medical model and the pills and the doctors and the hospitals. So changing our mind sometimes needs something drastic to happen, like I went through that suicidal depression.
Yeah.
But also it doesn't have to be drastic. We could do some research, find some new information, and look at our core beliefs
Yeah.
and ask ourselves, is that really true? Or does all this new information now want you to have a different belief
Yeah.
about what is possible?
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful, actually, how you broke that down. I think it's really valuable for the audience. I really loved it when you were explaining it. Like, it's our body is telling us and gives us signs, actually, if you're doing things not the right way. And it's with diseases, but it's also with other things in life. It's with your own purpose. It's with you really what you're here for, what you want to do. And we never learn how to do that because we never learned how to listen to our body, right? We learned
Yes.
everything to do from the mind. And the mind is saying this, and someone is telling you that, and you have to follow that structure, and you have to do this. And that's not how it works, actually. It's really beautiful. For people that are new into this, I know you work with clients around these topics, also around mindset. It's actually an example that you give of awaken, like being more conscious.
Yes.
Yeah, listen more to yourself, asking questions, take a step back out of your environment, out of your life, and look around and see, okay, what can I do better? Do I really feel good, or is there something wrong that I can do? Am I doing something wrong? Is there something I can do better? So I'm wondering, for someone that is not familiar with all these kind of concepts and rather want to stay in the comfort zone, because that's actually what it is. Because you're explaining, like, yeah, for most people, a certain important event needs to happen in their life to wake up and to see, I have to change something. And that's actually life that brings you out of your comfort zone. But if that doesn't happen, people rather just want to stay in their comfort zone and just do their own thing. So I don't know in what stage that the people are that you are helping that come to you, but I'm curious how you bring them into the process of becoming more conscious and listen and start listening more to themselves, their body, and so on.
Yeah, because it's easy to say awaken and become conscious, but a lot of us, well, everybody actually runs 95% of their life from their subconscious mind,
Yeah.
because our subconscious has learned how to do everything. Like driving a car, we can drive a car and talk to somebody at the same time without having to think about driving the car, because we're doing that from our subconscious mind, because it processes millions of bits a second, whereas our conscious mind is a lot slower.
It's
So
the autopilot, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, on autopilot. So when we come out of autopilot, it's about stopping and understanding what's going on right now. How do I feel?
Yeah.
What can I see, hear, feel, touch? Use your senses, and that grounds you in that moment.
Yeah.
But when I'm working with clients, I will ask them for a history. Tell me all about your life, and listen. Just listen to what they're saying. And then I'll ask for clarity, because quite often there'll be, like in my mind, there'll be red flags flying up on some of the things they say that for them it's just a part of their life. It's just how it was in inverted commas. But when I dig into that and ask for more clarity, I get them to think about what was going on at that time, why their thoughts were as they were around what was going on, who was involved. So that brings them out of subconscious, just regurgitating what happened in their life, to, okay, so let me just go back to that event. So now they're really thinking into it, they're becoming conscious of it. And one thing that really helps us, and is challenging to deal with, is our triggers. When we are triggered, when we have a negative emotional reaction to something, it's our body showing us that there's something unhealed within us.
Mm.
Whether it's the words that were said that remind us of our past, whether it's the person, their attitudes and behaviors that, again, that reminds us of our past, whether it's an emotion that was raised within a situation that was from our past. When we've got that negative reaction, it highlights something around what was said or done, or the person or the emotion from our past, that still needs healing.
Yeah.
So I don't try and trigger clients, because it's not very nice. But if they are triggered, I can help them to go into it, to become conscious and to work backwards. So, where is it coming from? What else has happened that you felt like that? Or was it the words, or was it the person? Was it the situation? Where's that coming from in your past? And quite often it's around a need for safety and security. And we
Yeah.
learn survival skills to keep us moving forwards in life as children. And quite often we suppress and repress those past events. And sometimes we even forget totally about them
Mm.
until our triggers really trigger.
Yeah.
And often we can't even remember what happened. We just know there's an emotion there, a negative emotion. So my work with clients is predominantly just talking, to help them to understand what's happened in their lives,
Mm.
and to go back and address some of the things that maybe they haven't addressed.
Yeah.
And look at it from that bigger picture, with the eyes of the adult that they are now, looking back to their childhood, and also doing some of that inner child work, because within virtually everybody is a hurt inner child who was holding on to that trauma. Maybe they've got an abandonment wound, maybe they were physically or sexually or mentally or even emotionally assaulted. But there's something somewhere in their past that is hurting, and that child, that inner child, is within everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of inner child work, helping them to understand what it is that their inner child is hurting with,
Mm.
and how we can address that now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you work with your clients on a conversation basis. Is that also including certain tools that you advise them to use? Do you teach them certain things that they have to practice in their own time? How does that work?
So I teach them about gratitude, mindfulness, and meditation because they're all helpful. Meditation doesn't have to mean sitting down for an hour. It can be a meditation during walking. It can be a 30-second guerrilla meditation, as it's called, where you literally come into that moment for as long as you can, seconds into minutes. It's about doing what we can to calm our body, calm our mind. Some breath work that can help. It's all little things, because I think if I suggest lots and lots of things, like all the things I've said around my own healing, it can be overwhelming. So it's like, start with something really small.
Yeah.
Can you take 30 seconds once or maybe twice or even 3 times a day just to be still? Whether you're sitting down, lying down, standing in a queue at the supermarket, doesn't matter. But take 30 seconds, breathe, become aware of your surroundings, feel the breath moving through your body. Just breathe deeply. Some really slow, deep breaths is great for calming our nervous system. And just build on those really small things. So I give them like self-help tools, things that are relatively easy that they can do for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. If people really have issues in their life, mostly mental issues, they don't see the positive anymore, then they go to a therapist, a psychologist, even. Why would someone come to you instead of a psychologist, for example?
I like that question because I think a therapist of any form brings somebody from like a place of where they're at in their suffering to the norm, the now. A coach helps people to understand their suffering and take them through the now and give them a view of their future. So we're helping them to be the best version of themselves in the now, but giving them looking into the future for what their goal is, their dream, because a lot of people have problems because they've let go of that dream. It's almost like they've cancelled it out. Well, I can't have that anymore. And the fact that they've cancelled it out affects their health in the now,
Yeah.
because it's like they're cutting off part of their path from their future, which affects their whole mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health in the now.
So are you actually saying that a psychologist doesn't bring the person into the now, into the present moment?
No, I think therapists bring people into the now. Coaches bring people into the now and then show them their future.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because for me, I think everything starts with being in the now, being in the present moment. Because
Yes.
many people are not in the present moment, or they're living in the past, or they're living in the future,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then it's living in stress or being depressed, or the other way around.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depressed looking backwards, and
Yes.
anxious and stressed looking
Looking
forwards.
forward. That's actually what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
even the future will become a now moment, and the past was a now moment. If you look at Eckhart Tolle's writing, everything, there is only now, this moment now.
yeah.
In the next 5 minutes, when that comes about, it will still be a moment in this now. And the past were all moments in this now.
Yeah.
So we can plan for a future. We can look at the future we want and make waves to that. And when it comes about, it will just be another moment in this now present moment.
Yeah. 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 Do you have a little bit of a feeling how we are today in our society, how well we are or not well we are, based on your experience, based on the type of clients you work with, based on the demand that you have, maybe? Is there something that you can share around that?
I think we're, as a nation, as a collective, we are stressed, depressed, anxious, and unhealthy in the main.
Yeah. Doesn't sound good.
No. But we can change that. We have the power within ourselves to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we talked about actually so far, right? So I think the essence of the work that you do are these 4 pillars, right?
Yes.
So if someone comes to you for help, are you giving them like a plan that contains these 4 pillars, or you really look into that person as such and to decide, okay, I have to go deeper in one of these 4 pillars because that's more present right now, and then I include all the others in a later stage. How does that work? And how long is a process when you work with someone?
So when I'm asking for a history and asking for clarity on events, I'm predominantly working in the emotional pillar. When I learn more about their health, their daily lifestyle, what they do on a daily basis, I can tap into the physical and the spiritual and the mental. So I don't actually talk about the four pillars. I just talk about what they can do to help themselves in baby steps to help change their life for the better and get them to own what they're going through and how they are now. Because when we can own it, as in, yes, I see that by doing this, I'm making myself sick, or by holding on to that, I'm keeping myself sick, rather than stepping forwards to the future. So if we can become responsible for how we are now, we can then step into empowerment and take charge of how we're going to be in the future and make a plan for that.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. So how long are you doing this work right now?
I qualified as a coach in 2016, so where are we now for 8 years?
Yeah. Okay. Are there some major changes that you have seen over the years?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think a lot of people are struggling with holding on to past trauma that they need to let go to move on with their lives, and it's manifesting in different symptoms in their body. So a lot of the root cause of people's problems is holding on to that past.
Yeah.
Not all, obviously, because diet and lifestyle play a huge part as well. But if we can address the trauma, whether it's a capital T trauma or a little t trauma, it doesn't matter. It's still the same. It still manifests symptoms. So if we can address that, get them to become conscious of it. So I help my clients step out of their subconscious into their conscious mind and plan what they're going to do and how they can move forwards in their life after they've addressed that. And I work with them on addressing that trauma, to, as I said, to see through the eyes of an adult now with forgiveness and unconditional love.
I totally agree with that. And I'm happy to hear it coming from you, actually, from someone that is working with this on a daily basis. I see that, yeah, trauma is becoming more and more a topic where, yeah, people start learning about, talking about. There's a lot of information that's going around, and it's really great. And I'm really happy to see that. But on the other hand, I also see a lot of people that see that they know something about it, but they still think it's not for them. They still think,
Yeah.
I never had something in my life, or I was happy as a child, or maybe some things happen, but it's the past, I'm living in the future,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah,
that tends to be the older generation. I think the baby boomer generation,
yeah,
because there wasn't the help around back then that there is now.
yeah,
And it was a case of, well, that's happened. Now just get on with your life, let go of it, throw it away, whatever, hide it deep, do whatever you need to do, but don't let it interfere with your life and move forwards. So a lot of baby boomer generation will have trauma and not want to address it because they feel they've addressed it by suppressing it, repressing it, or letting it go.
yeah,
Whereas the younger generation now, I feel, are encouraged to talk about their problems. But I think a lot of them sort of overstep the boundaries because those boundaries were never set as they were growing up. So the baby boomers don't share because they're took it away, repress it, and move forwards. Where we're now Gen Z, Gen Alpha even that are coming out now, are encouraged to share everything.
yeah.
And it's like there's a lack of boundaries on what should be shared and what shouldn't.
I totally agree. It's like the pendulum is swinging totally to the other side, and that happens with
Yes.
many things in life. I think once you discover something, or you have to change your beliefs, then you're gonna explore, and then in a lot of cases you're going more into the other side. I experienced it
Yeah.
myself too, actually, in spirituality and other kind of things. But I always was very conscious, like for me, it's all about balance. It's about
Yes.
still being part of society, learning a lot about myself, but also seeing the others, how they also, maybe can change certain things, but just try to be an inspiration for other people, and not isolating myself out of society to become a better person myself.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we still need to integrate in society, and I think with the advent of mobile phones and what's it, computer games, more and more of the younger generations have spent their time in their house on the computer games,
yeah,
whereas my generation, we were out on the streets
mm,
playing with friends, and we were interacting with people, so we learnt about boundaries, we learnt about social etiquette,
yeah,
we learned that, what we could and we couldn't say and how to say it, because we got that feedback from people
yeah,
verbally, from body language, whereas the younger generations today predominantly are on their phones,
yeah,
having discussions on their phones, so there's no emotion.
no,
You can't feel or understand what emotion is behind any message. It
yeah,
could be one of love, but it could be a sarcastic
yeah,
message, and it's how can you tell
exactly.
without seeing that person, because words are only 7% of communication.
Yeah,
Body language and energy is the other 93%. And we don't get that
mm,
through phones and communication on the internet.
that's totally true. Yeah, that's another topic I can talk a lot about. How social media influences connecting with people in real life, actually, because social media helped us to connect with more people online and more people in general and with people on the other side of the world. And that's why we are talking as well today. But it also disconnected a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? And like in real life, in society. And yeah, it's really an issue, I think. It's yeah, I experience it also in my life and what I do. And I don't know, I'm from not from the alpha generation anymore, but but still, I'm wondering actually where that goes in a few years. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of children, I mean, I'm going back a few years ago, there were children going to school who couldn't hold a pen and pencil, couldn't hold cutlery, couldn't eat with a knife and fork, were still in nappies because they were just on a computer all the time
yeah,
with their hands, fingers, faces, and would get bored easily and would just melt with any form of conflict. They
mm,
couldn't understand. They didn't have those interactions that we had when we were younger,
mm-hmm,
and the disciplines as well.
yeah, 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 totally right. So you're a holistic coach. You're also a speaker. And what is for you actually? What is next for you? So you understand the work that you do. It's very important what you do, and I feel that you also want to impact as much people as possible with this kind of work. So what is next for you? How do you see yourself moving, growing, or spread more awareness around the topics we talked about?
So I see myself speaking more from a stage to impact more people, whether that's a physical stage or doing more summits, being on more podcasts, to impact more people, as in have a greater audience through either other people's audiences or through stages and summits,
Yeah,
so that I can just keep on sharing the message that we can heal ourselves. It's the message that's so important for to land with people.
yeah,
And once they see people can heal themselves and read testimonies or hear people talking about their own healing, it helps them to look at their own beliefs,
yeah,
like it did for myself, and maybe even change their belief from I need a doctor and pills to, oh, look, all these people have healed themselves. I wonder if I could do that.
yeah,
And let's start trying to do that.
yeah,
And when we can do that, we empower ourselves so much. It's it's wonderful to be proactive and look at what we can do to prevent illness.
mm,
But if illness has come, hopefully the message will help people to start looking at what they can do differently in their lives to change their lives radically and overhaul their health, because it's health that's our wealth.
mm,
Health is so
yes,
important. If we haven't got health, we can't do anything.
no, totally true. Yeah, exactly. So are you also planning to write a new book or create something else? I don't know.
I have started doing some research for a new book on empathy. And I sent out a questionnaire to lots of people, and I'm working through the responses. And I'm looking at not empathy per se, but people's own perceptions of empathy. Because from the responses I've had back, we all perceive empathy a little bit different. There's a lot that's the same, but there's a lot that's different
Yeah.
on people's own perceptions, and that is really intriguing to find out how people value empathy and what they believe around it, what it means to them.
Yeah.
So there's a book in the
In the
making.
making.
When it's coming out, and it's not going to lie in my computer for 5 years, that's for sure. But I'm not sure when it will come out.
I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful topic. Definitely. I think empathy is related to trauma as well. That's how I experience it, to be honest. But I'm not if it's for everyone like that. But I think it can be related to that. Yeah.
Well, I think we've got a continuum with trauma, and you either become an empath or you become a narcissist,
Yeah.
or you're somewhere in the middle. And when trauma happens, people who move towards empathy want to understand what's going on in the situation. So they tune into the other people to try and understand. When we move towards the narcissist end, we don't want to understand the other people. That trauma hurt us so badly that we only want to look after ourselves.
Exactly.
And it's my understanding that the narcissist holds the most trauma.
Yeah.
I'm not saying one's better than the other, but the narcissist has been traumatized the most. And we're all somewhere on that spectrum.
Yeah. 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 Totally true. Yeah. Very well explained.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we're near the end of this episode. One last question I mostly ask is if there was an advice that you could give our audience, or if there is a certain topic that we haven't talked about extensively that you find important. What would you say to the audience right now?
I think the biggest thing we can all do for ourselves is recognize the stress that we feel, recognize where it's coming from, what it is within those situations or people that cause us that stress. And also recognize that if it's to do with other people and other things, it's out of our control. We can only deal with ourselves and what we do, what we believe, what we say, our words, our emotions. That is all we are responsible for. Yes, we have social responsibilities, but we can't control anything outside of ourselves. So if we can look at what we perceive as stress and look at it with a new mind, as in what can we control, what can't we control, and how can we let go of some of that? Because stress in itself causes inflammation in our body, which causes illness. So by addressing the stress and de-stressing ourselves, whether it's understanding it and letting it go, or whether it's just taking some moments and being mindful, practicing gratitude, or even doing a short or however long a meditation you want to do, will calm our mind and our body, is a huge, well, it's a small thing really, but it will have a huge impact on our health.
Yeah, a small thing, and for most people, a big step.
Yeah.
It's true, and it can only you can only start with 5 minutes a day. Just step back out of your life, sit down, meditate, or do something similar, and see what happens. Feel and go in your body and feel. It's really, yeah, it's really easy to say and to do, but yeah, in
But you have to
reality,
become conscious.
yeah, it's a big step for most people. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one to close this episode. If people want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go? Where can they best find you?
Through my website, www.sarahdawkins.com. That's SARAHDAWKINS.com.
Okay, great. I will share the links in the comments in the description later as well. So yeah, it will be easy to find you. Thank you very much, Sarah. It was really a pleasure to have you here. You shared a lot of interesting information, important information, actually, that I fully resonate with. I hope the audience have a little bit of takeaways out of this. I'm sure they have, but at the same time, I hope as well that they're doing something with it. Taking action is the most important step, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You can watch like thousands of podcasts, and I know a lot of people do that and don't take any action, and then expecting something's going to change, but unfortunately nothing is going to change. So
No.
let this episode be the trigger. And and if that's a trigger for people, don't hesitate to share it in the comments or ask questions. Sarah will answer them or me will answer them. So I'm happy to do that. So yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. It was really a pleasure to have you here. And I wish you a lot of success with all the things that you will do in the future.
Thank you, Henk, for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience.